action. I wanted to take a minute away from our normal tech topics and talk for a minute about Occupy Wall Street. Now, those of you who know me personally know that I have mixed feelings about Occupy Wall Street. On one hand, I support equality and giving people a fair wage and giving people a fair standard of living. On the other hand, I don't support the way that the Occupy movement wants to do it. And I don't support a lot of the things they stand for. But one of the things that I do support is their right to protest. And someone, I don't remember off the top of my head who said it, but there's a saying that says, I may not agree with what you're saying, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. And that's where I stand really strongly on Occupy Wall Street. I don't agree with everything they're saying. I think some of it is absolute garbage and useless. But they have a right to say it. They have a guaranteed constitutional right to assemble and protest and have their voices heard. Now, last night I watched in horror as police dismantled Occupy LA. They went in, and now to the police's credit, to the LAPD's credit, they weren't violent, with the exception of shooting a protester out of a tree with rubber bullets. I didn't quite get that, but whatever. But the LAPD, for the most part, wasn't violent. The protesters didn't riot and didn't get violent back. So it was a pretty peaceful thing. What bothered me was not so much that the police were there, but it's that the politicians felt that they had the right to break up that assembly. This was a lawful assembly of a group of people that were petitioning the government for redress. And the politicians not only said, you're not getting redress, you're not getting your problems answered, you're not getting your opinions heard, but we aren't going to give you the right to exercise a constitutional right. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand the argument that people are making, well, their permit was revoked. And here's the problem I have with that. You don't need a permit to protest. Someone on Facebook made a comment last night about whenever I said the thing about their permit had been revoked, they said, if you need a permit, if you ask for a permit, it's not really a protest. You're begging the government, please let us talk to you. And they're giving you permission. The only permit you need to protest is the Constitution and your right to protest, your right to speak your mind, your right to speak freely. You don't need any other permit. And so what bothered me most was the government saying, you don't have the right to be here. We're not going to listen to you anymore. We're done. We've played the game. We're not going to listen anymore. But aside from that, an odd thing happened. The media was basically banned from covering it. Now, it wasn't a traditional ban saying you can't be here at all, but it was you need to stay in a very specific designated area. And once we declare what amounted to martial law in the encampment, we'll let you come in and we'll let you cover it and we'll let you film. But you can't film what we're doing while we're dismantling the tents, while we're removing the protesters. You can't film that. Several protesters, however, non-traditional media, citizen journalists, we did a video about that not too long ago, did film and did broadcast live over Ustream. And to their credit, the police did act very professionally. But the idea that first the government not only can tell people you don't have a right to protest, we aren't going to tolerate the exercise of your First Amendment rights, but also feels that they've got the right to tell the media, you can't cover this. You can't do your job. And what good is it to have an independent media if they can be controlled by the government? I mean, again, on Facebook last night, someone said, when the government tells you to go, that's when you need to stay, because that's when they don't want you to see something, And unfortunately, I mean, to the media's shame, they mostly listened to the government. They stayed in their little area. Some of them were asked to leave, and they packed up and left. I believe KTLA did not do that. They flew a helicopter and basically broadcast the entire thing. I believe Al Jazeera stuck around, and they were pretty good at reporting. But a lot of the media just kind of stayed in their little box. So I guess what I'm doing with this video, what I'm saying with this video is, if you have a problem with the government, you have a right to speak your mind. You have a right to be heard. And the government doesn't have a right to take away that right because they didn't give it to you to begin with. Whether you believe in a creator or whether you believe that, you were just born with certain rights as a human being, you have those rights. It's not something the government gives, so therefore it's not something they can take away. The government is there to codify rights. The Constitution is there to protect rights. The Constitution codified rights, but it didn't grant rights. And so, yeah, so like I said, I don't agree with a lot of the Occupy Wall Street movement, but I definitely don't agree with the government's response to it. And I understand the reasons behind it, and I understand that the financial system, really doesn't want anyone to shine light on the corruption within it. And so they're going to do whatever they can to stop people from doing that. But, yeah, it was just a little odd. I've watched over the past couple of weeks the way that the Occupy movement's been treated, and it's a bit of a shame for our country. So yeah, I guess that's my take on the Occupy movement. I would say if you're protesting, stick it out. Don't go. You are the only hope for change we have because most Americans are asleep. They don't understand what's going on around them. They get their news from Fox News or from MSNBC or from CNN, and they don't think for themselves. And so if change is going to come, it's going to come from people like the Occupy people. And good or bad, it is what it is. So thanks a lot, and hope you have a great evening.